S&P breaks a critical level but then closes over it. Nasdaq makes a lower low and continues to form a bear flag. Semiconductors gap down on the day but then close flat. Massive reversal staged today in oil and gas exploration. What this is telling us. UPST is down 20% after hours. We'll explain why. SMCI is down 10% on earnings. Schlumberger bounced off the bottom of its bull flag. PENN is up 15% after hours, and DraftKings is down 10%. We'll explain why, and it's not what you think. NVIDIA cracked a key level. MDB down 10% today. We'll explain why. LYFT up 10% after hours, only to reverse and be down 6.5%. Regional staged a massive rally after a downgrade. Celsius Holdings up $20. AMD continues to roll. On Apple, unable to get above 80. We have a ton to go over. Let's get to it. Hey everybody, welcome back. We have a lot to go over. So we're going to cover a lot of ground in a very short period of time. So let's just get into it. Lower low took out the 4,500, which is not what we want to see. We're unable to get above the 22. We're unable to get this 12 to turn up. So it looks like we're going to get a 12-22 cross, which is decidedly bearish and you don't want it. I'm going to be really clear about this. We went over this in the pre-market video, and you should probably join us. It's live, 8:30. Sometimes we start a little bit earlier, but if you can't get over that level there, which also ties into another level I'll show you in a moment, if you can't get over 45.57, it's time to go. Now you can see that 12.22 there. We take that straight across, and if you just drop it to the top of here, you can see how that ties right in. This is us on an hourly. Let's just take that straight across. I don't really view that as a coincidence, but we could say it's a coincidence. Either way, you really need to watch this 45.60, don't you? You really have to pay attention to that level, and you can see it right here. We've been talking about this being the neckline for some time. What becomes troubling is not only can you not break the neckline, but when you get to that point where you start seeing this, and you start unable to get above other places of interest, when that starts to happen, that becomes an interest. So 45.61 is going to be a key area for us. We're also going to have to watch that 45.45 here, and we're going to want to watch that 45.61. I put that bad boy right there. There it is. So we can see that very, very clearly. Rejection, it really doesn't get any clearer. And you can see here how that was at one point support, and then it flipped to what? Rejection. So we can see this very clearly. Remember these levels if you're unable to attend tomorrow and you just want to go through them. Again, we have a litany to go over. So what we're going to do is we're going to do the names in alphabetical order after we do the indexes so that you'll have a record as you can use for your timeline when you start going through it. Please comment on this video, and the format is going to be a little different tonight, talking about individual names. I think that's more pertinent now than just because they're telling us a lot what they're doing. And I'll explain what I mean by that in a moment here. So you can see us sitting on a critical level. We've talked about this ad nauseum, but this is very important for us to recognize because it's the first one that we've had in a very long period of time. We have a lower low. It's been established as a lower low. We're going to drill into a smaller time frame here and really get into this. But we went through this fan, and I think this fan's pretty important to just kind of get the basics. You can see how you are there, and how they just walked you up, and then eventually what happens is you will break the fan. And that's exactly what happened right there. When you have these little crosses, usually means the way that these crosses work is you just come down to the next one, then the next one, etc., etc. What's pertinent about this? Why do you have to pay attention to this? You have to pay attention to it because it tells you what's going on. Now, for our purposes, we're going to clean that off, and we're just going to use the big demarcation line, because it tells you about a shift. That's why you have to pay attention to that. And I did read everybody's comments on moving averages, and I'm going to do a moving average video because there was so much demand for it. That and a video on puts, there was so much demand for that as well. You are below the 50 for the first time on Nasdaq futures. Let me just show you this. That is today. This is the first time you are below the 50 on the RSI, on the Nasdaq, since back here. Okay. Doesn't mean you're going to fall apart. Doesn't mean it's the end of the world. What does it mean? It does mean you're setting up for underperformance, period. Well, what does that mean? That means something else is going to outperform. I'm going to talk about what I think it's going to be in a second here. So if we take a look at this and we can see how this is going on, and we see how this is playing out, right? We're starting to roll. We're starting to have issues. The RSI is cracking here. Now, if we look at our level on an hourly chart, you can see where we're at here. When we talk about this, we just talked about this. They're walking you down this way. What does that mean? See this, the trajectory of these angles here? Look, watch when you come up here. See it? See how that's happening? What's happening? It's getting worse. It's not getting better. So we're starting to see what the easy way to look at this and to think about this is to think about it from this perspective. You're watching the market deteriorate. You're watching the Nasdaq get worse. You're not watching it get better. And if you take one thing away, take this from it. I'm not going to sit here and pontificate upon what's going to happen with earnings and NVIDIA and this. We're going to get into that. SMCI is supposed to light the world on fire. It's down 30 points. So we trade what's in front of us here. I don't want to sit here and predict. There's a ton of other rooms that you could go to or channels you can go to that will predict. It's not what we do here. We look at what's going on and we trade what's in front of us. So if you take a look at the Nasdaq and look what's going on there, I want to just jump through the names line by line. And what you might want to do with this, just FYI, is just remember this level tomorrow, 15,271, before we continue. I'm going to go line by line because I think that's going to be the easiest way to explain this. So if you look at the hourly here, we're going to get rid of the pre and the post. And you can see clearly when we came out with earnings and what happened with Apple. And we can see that break. And it's very silly. I mean, we don't really have to spend much time with it. They missed iPhone sales. We get it. It's not rocket science. This is your neckline. You bounced on the hourly to the neckline. You broke the doji. Here, it's not rocket science, guys. That's why I'm a pattern trader, because when you're a pattern trader, to me, when you're a pattern trader, life gets really easy because when the pattern either confirms or negates, you move. If it doesn't confirm or negate, you don't move. Your life gets very simple. Here's the doji, crack the doji, and that's pretty much it. Okay? People will say, oh, well, it's not that simple. Actually, it is, because this is telling you that you have a battle here. This is telling you the battle's still going on. This is telling you the battle is over. Okay, there's a myriad of ways to look at it, but that's very clear. So we've been short this for some time. I have puts in this, and I am also long a bear ETF in it. If we take a look at this on the daily, and I'm showing this for a reason. This is 2 days of massive selling. 2 days, massive selling, and let's take a look at this as well. I'm below here in the RSI, so I'm oversold already in 2 days. And Apple, here's the 55. Here's the 2212 cross down. So we have everything going for us. Surely we're going to bounce. And day 3, you usually do bounce. This is it. That's all I can get. That's all I could lift. It's anemic. That's an anemic bounce. That's I'm closing my shorts by the end of the day because I don't want to be short overnight. That's all that is. So when we start to see that, we need to pay attention. Okay, I would tell you that until Apple starts getting over this 86, 87, 186, 187, to go take a look at this XLK, you do not want to be playing with tech in the S&P. All right, how well? Let me just give you a demarcation line to use, and then I'll explain why I'm saying this. And as I stated, there's a ton to go over for tomorrow, and all this is geared for tomorrow. But if you take a look at the XLK right, and you see that level, when was the last time you were below the 55 on the technology sector in the S&P? Do you want me to mark it? It was here. Okay, it was January. Where are you? You're below. Do you think it's a good idea to be buying Apple and Microsoft right now? Or do they look like they're about to roll? All right, so when we see this stuff, we can either act on it or we could just say that the market's wrong. I'm going to act on it, and I'm going to make money based upon that. And then I'll just use my stops and go from there on to the next one. AMD was troubling for me because I was short and it just refused to go down. But you have this level in here that was very glaring, and you can actually do very well just watching this level I'm about to give you. See that 116? You can't get over that. Red bar, controlling red bar, breaks down, tries to reverse, bumps in the 55, looks like it's going to flip, gives you this wonky do here, and then breaks down and closes below the 55. This is a failed, and I'm going to be real clear about this, this is a failed attempt to get over the 55. This is an actual, to me, in my head, down, up 3, down. I'm going to do a candlestick video on this. I definitely want to do a candlestick video on this pattern. But when you see this is the simplest trade in the world, because that's really what you want to make sure that you close below. No, forget where you enter, but you want to close below the lower low. And if you close over the high of the day, which is 115.46, if you close over it, not if you go over it, because depending upon how you trade, but I want to see the close. 115.46, you close over that, then you're okay. If you don't close over that, you might want to stay short that. But this looks to me like we're setting up, and that we are setting up to start rolling, and we're starting to see more structure towards this rolling that we're talking about happening. And I want to go through these again in alphabetical order because there's just so much to go over. CELH just knocked the cover off the ball. Now, what we've been seeing with these names is they've been staying up for about a day and then they're starting to crack. I don't know that that's going to happen here. I know that I'm not chasing this tomorrow. What got me after hours was this. Look how thin that is. Okay, after hours, this entire move is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 bars. Out of those 5 bars, you're looking at 2,000 or 3,000 shares that moved this whole thing that far. That's absolutely insane. And it's not something that I can hang my hat on that's going to be there tomorrow. And that's kind of how I'm looking at it. So I think it's great. I'd like to see this. Congratulations to those that are in it. It's absolute monster, and they've done exceptionally well with it. It's not something that I can play with that kind of volume. We need to see how it acts tomorrow. But for now, congratulations. And this will definitely be one that everyone will be talking about tomorrow, and it should be on your radar. Now, DraftKings. Why is it $30? It's actually starting to trade up a little bit. Why was it down? It was down because PENN Gaming announced a deal, and you can see how PENN Gaming is up, announced a deal with Disney. And this deal allows ESPN and PENN Gaming to merge together to form some kind of sports gaming app, and that will be marketed by both. At the same time, PENN is spinning off Barstool back to Portnoy. Okay? Portnoy got $550 million was the buyout. He had partners, but the buyout was $550. Okay? Gets the buyout, gets the company back for zero. Now, there's a couple things to take from this. Number one, earnings Wednesday. Right? This is coming out now. That's kind of interesting. Why would you get rid of Barstool? Only if it's not a profit center. It was a profit center before, so whatever you did to it made it a non-profit center. This is a huge write-off that they're going to have to take. And I'm really curious how they're going to show this rough, because they didn't get into that today at all. And they did not really get into these terms with Disney. They didn't really get into all the terms, who's going to get what. ESPN is a huge name to be in this space and the way that they're partnering. I would say that Portnoy made out like a bandit here. And now what we're going to see is we're going to have to see what happens. In other words, what does DraftKings do about this? Is it a non-event? I don't know. I don't know how sticky sports gaming is. You need to pay attention to both these names tomorrow. It's very clear now why this was selling off. Somebody always knows, and this was very clear. I would say this about PENN. At the time of filming this, I am short. I did start actually long because to me the news was so good, and it traded up a little bit, did okay there. But the more that I read, it became increasingly clear of one thing. It became very clear to me that this was just an awful deal when them getting rid of Barstool. And I think what's starting to happen is as people start to read this more and more, they're reading that this is an absolute disaster. So I would not be surprised to see this gap fill and actually trade down. I don't know how earnings are going to go. This is not the kind of thing you do going into earnings if earnings and everything is firing great. Okay, this is what you do if you're trying to restructure your company. And I think that that's what you're dealing with here. It does affect DraftKings. It traded down a lot more. We'll see how it goes from there. DPST came in really hard today. This was one we were playing around in the trading community. This was pretty much a layup trade in my opinion, but it is what it is. You can just see the absolute breakdown. Moody's downgrading all the regionals. They flush out retail. Then you bounce back up, come down for the retest, and that was pretty much it. It just rock and rolled all day. If people were in it, my advice when they were in it, I was just saying that you're probably going to gap fill. Why am I showing you this? Because you're rotating into different spaces, guys. You're rotating into different spaces, and you're going to have to start looking at tech. And I say guys in the general sense. Actually, 15% of the people that watch this video are female, which is kind of cool because it's like 3 times the average. So anyway, you see that hammer right there? Let's get rid of our lines, and this is DPST. Let's get rid of our lines right there. So you see that hammer? You want to pay attention to that. Okay, when you do that, that's just straight up buying. And this is moving because the regionals are moving. Why are the regionals moving? Because people are buying assets that are at value. You'll remember this from Friday or Saturday's video, and I said that all these videos are tied together. If you've been watching for a while, you'll know that. But look at how value VTE is doing versus growth. I told you we had a lot to go through. And I'm scratching the surface versus going deep because there's so much to go through and then process before tomorrow. And I apologize for getting this out late, but it was a very busy night. So if you can see this and you can see where you're at, the higher high, well, value, they're still buying value and they're still selling growth. That hasn't stopped. Well, what do regional banks have to do with that? Well, some of these regional banks are trading at 4 or 5 times PE. It's crazy where they're trading at, okay? NYCB was a trade that we did in the room today. Maybe there was 15 cents there. For me, it was a great way to get in and buy more. We owned it at 8.5. I love that name. And that's what I would do with it. I'd buy the ones that you want to buy. If you don't know what to buy, I would take a look at DPST, look at regionals. What happened today? All it did was present an opportunity for those that understand how money is flowing, which is what we're trying to do here, is to get people to understand what is happening, hence trade what's in front of you. So Google, I want to go through this. This was a very simple trade off the open, and I'm just going to give you guys a really quick tip here, and you can use it off the open for those that are quick traders. 12, 22, 55. See how you're above all three? Let's clean up my nonsense. See how the S&P is not above all three? Okay, so when you gap down in mornings, as long as it's not news-related stock, go and look for the highest relative strength. The easiest way to determine relative strength, instead of paying for an expensive service that's going to do exactly what I'm going to show you right here, all relative strength is how strong this stock is versus the index, right? That's all relative strength is, okay? I'm not knocking it, but what I'm saying is, why can't you just go and look for yourself and see that this is above the 12, the 22, and the 55, and the index is not? So do you think that this is stronger or weaker than the S&P? It's stronger. Therefore, when we come in and then when we bounce, what's going to happen? These names are going to move first. They're going to be first movers unless there's news. So when you see these kinds of names, you might want to pay attention to that. We just had a real quick scalp in that this morning. LYFT. Yeah, this was some shenanigans that actually caught me off guard tonight. And really what it was, they come out and they say that they made money, but the money that they made, they didn't really make. It's more of an accounting kind of thing. And that's why you were up over 10, 15%. Told you we had a lot to go through. And then when it was revealed on the conference call that it was shenanigans, the flim-flam started and we sold down. They missed on the revenue side. Take a look at this after hours. So it exploded to the upside, And then you just completely rolled over. I don't know how this does tomorrow. I know you have a lot of people trapped. One of the quickest ways to determine if people are trapped, just put an anchored from where you broke out on that first bar, broke down, broke up, and you can just tell that the average person after hours owns the stock at around 1160. It's a really quick way to understand what's going on out there. MDB. So this was one we traded pre-market. We did well. If you were on the pre-market live, we actually talked about this, how silly it was that these names were trading down after they raised guidance. But rationality in the stock market don't exist. So what we saw here was real simple. We came right down again. We had a nice trade on it, came right down, traded up. That was pretty much it. This was our level. If you ever want to know where your levels are, just go look for the low of the previous day in market. And isn't that a coincidence that that's where you stopped? Because that's where these people said, you know what, I've had enough. I'm out. Tag, you're it. And they give you the stock. Supply drops, breaks VWAP, and then you're doing this all day. I'd watch this tomorrow. I kind of like this name. I mean, I'm not crazy about tech, as I just said, but let's clean this off for a second. Okay, I came out crushed and raised. Okay, 6%, I'm up. 6%, 200% on earnings. That's a real beat on MDB. Okay, that's not whatever this was today. Okay, whatever they did there. And you can see this in this absolute disaster. Now, I would tell you this about D-Dog. You're going to have some bottom fishermen tomorrow. Usually these pop over to lure people in, and then they roll. This D-Dog, I'm just going to tell you this, I would watch that level of $91 right there. You can go from there. Start looking at these names that are holding, that benefit from a weak dollar. Something like this that came out with earnings, and that's behind us. So we have 3 months. We don't have to worry about it. You're starting to see $2,000 target prices on this name. MELI, right in here. Huge left shoulder, head, right shoulder. Let's just draw it out so you can see it. Left shoulder, head, right shoulder. And do me a favor. Call it here, and because there's the neckline. But comment on this, because I'm covering a lot of ground, and I want to know if it's better to cover a lot of ground when we need to, or I should just go deeper into some of these, because I could spend 15, 20 minutes just on DraftKings and PENN and what happened there. So your comments do help me create content, and I do appreciate them. It helps with the algorithms, and as long as it keeps happening, I don't have to run commercials to get YouTube to show these videos, and it helps support the channel. NVIDIA, take a look at NVIDIA. See what I'm saying here, though? Hopefully you get this. I'm covering a lot of ground. All right, so you start seeing names like this set up to break out. You start seeing Google hold. Well, why are we playing with names that aren't working? Play with the names that are pulling back, because this is, in my opinion, okay, this is just an opinion. We're pulling back. because things got a little overheated. This is not, we're going to go down and the market's going to crash. I'm not in that camp. So when you pull back and you're given an opportunity, take the opportunity. Hope that helps. Let's see here. NVIDIA, let's talk about this. After SMCI tonight, I am surprised that this is not down. I am actually net short this name right now, and I'm saying it that way because I have a long-term long position on it, but I have a short-term short position on it. Different accounts, different strategies. But the reason I'm bringing it up is we've been talking about these levels. And again, you should use whatever levels you want to use. I use a 12 and a 22. Look what's happening right there. What can't you get over? What did you reject? What else rejected there today? AMD. So you have the two heavy hitters that are rejecting there. Something to think about tomorrow. You might want to watch the stocks tomorrow. We're going to get to it in a moment. But down, 1, 2, 3, up, down. Doesn't really get any clearer on where your stop would be if you were short. Doesn't really get much clearer. And this is what I'm talking about, the rotation. So here you see Schlumberger come all the way down, and then what does it do? Boom, we just break out, okay? Break out of a multi-week, almost multi-month flag on news, holds the 22 on the open, flips the 12, and goes. There are the names you want to pay attention to. SLG, down $1.50, closes down 50 cents. It's up another 50 cents after earnings, and it's back to green. Why? Value. It's trading at 50 cents on the dollar. We bought this in the community at 32. It's at 38. If you are not currently in the community and you are interested, link in description for the waitlist. And we are waitlisted. Someone sent me an email and I'll respond to it. How long the waitlist could be, it depends. When everybody comes in, I actually talk to everybody. There's an onboarding call, so I talk to everybody. It's a one-man show. It's staying that way because that way I can control the culture. So it is what it is. Let's see here, SMCI, I just want to talk about this. Now, you're looking at the earnings and the revenue here. They were good. I think they got it higher. I don't know what the expectations were, but this was kind of setting up that little blow off top, and I think you got it. I don't really know what people were expecting. I thought it was very good. I think it was decent. I did not listen to this conference call, so I don't know if I missed something on the conference call or not. Stocks, you gap down, you have a dragonfly here, dragonfly's red, you are below the 12, you are below the 22. You still have these higher highs going on, and then what do you have here? What's going on there? We have a negative divergence. Do you want to go and buy semis? Go for it. I would be playing hot potato if I was doing that. Okay, I'd be real careful until this structure changes. Because you got a lot of noise you got to get through now and a lot of people that want out. And that's what happens when people want out and you trade into it, becomes resistance. No different than how that area up here became resistance for MDB. Same superheated Tesla. You're hanging in there, and I'm going to be asked about it, but you're holding 250 and you're holding that 55. Why I think it's going to crack is here. I'm below the 50. So until that changes, I think we're going to crack, and I would watch that. TWLO had a decent report after hours, but you're starting to sell down, and I went to cover this so people are aware of it. I think they had a blowout. I thought it was a really good report. From everything I read, I don't see any reason. Let's clean all this off. This is TWLO. I don't really see a reason to knock this. Maybe you have too much minutia in here, and that's going to give you a hard time to get through all that. But I don't know. I don't know that is. But I would watch that, and I'd watch in here very carefully. Now, you've got that little base. Are you going to get in there or are you going to reject? I have no idea. I did a little trade after hours. Didn't really go anywhere, just blew it out. But I do think that when you look at that, there might be something there. It usually is pretty vicious on earnings. It just was not that vicious today. UPST, I thought this was actually pretty good. Let's pop all this in. I thought this was fairly decent. They're saying, oh, it's lower than expected. You're really going to have to go through all of it and tear it apart. You know, the stock moved from last quarter from 19 to 70. I'm not surprised. I actually went long out of the money calls because I thought it could continue to go. Just a lotto bet. But people always ask you to tell them things that don't work. That obviously did not work. So what you're doing here is, even after hours, I tried to buy a little bit, made very little money. But for me, I'd watch that 55 tomorrow. Do I think this is done? I'm not so sure this is done. I'm starting to think that maybe this leaked up here, and that's why we saw the pressure. Maybe we hold that 55 and they build. I mean, okay, so you bought here and you're upset because you're only up 100% in 3 months. You know, you kind of have to put this stuff in perspective. Like, I thought that this could be an absolute blowout because of the money they took. It just was not. So as I said, we have a lot to cover. XOP. Look how you broke down today. Look how you rallied over that breakout, okay? This is the type of stuff that you want to see. This is exactly what you want to see. And now you're at the high end of this channel, and I'd watch this, and I'd watch the names in this space tomorrow. That's it.